Hello, my name is Chyld, and this is the first in a series of screencasts on Titan. It's a backup utility written in Ruby, and we're going to use the Amazon Web Services or AWS S3 and Glacier or Dropbox, and we're going to encrypt these files um, in Ruby and then use it to store these files in the cloud. And obviously you'll be able to, of course, download the files and decrypt them and use them as normal. So anyway, this is going to be a tutorial on how to use Ruby and how to use AWS and Dropbox APIs. So enjoy. First off, we're going to be using Ruby. Now I'm using Ruby 2.0, and how you can tell what version of Ruby you have is if you go to your command line. Now Ruby, of course, is a virtual machine, and it'll run on any environment, whether it be Mac, Linux, or PC. So if you're at your command line in whatever environment you're at, if you type in Ruby -v, it'll give you your version. As you can see here, this is version 2.0, patch level 247. So this is, as of this recording, this is the most recent version of Ruby. Now, if you don't have Ruby, you can go to railsinstaller.org, go toward the bottom, and you can download either. Well, if you were on Windows, I would download the Ruby 1.9 right here, which has all these components. Or if you're on Mac, depending on the version you have of Mac, you can click on this one or this one. It has this. As you can tell on this page right here, these have Ruby 1.9.3, which will work just fine with this demo. But you can upgrade it to 2.0. There's another way to download Ruby or install Ruby on your system, and it's a little bit more advanced. For those people looking for a more detailed version, and it's RVM. If you go to rvm.io right here, and you come down here and read the installation documentation. Now this video is not about RVM or how to install it, but this is a quick stall guide on how to install RVM. RVM is the Ruby version manager. So this is actually how I install Ruby, using RVM. But if you're more of a beginner and you're not sure exactly how to install Ruby, you can go to railsinstaller.org. Alright. Now after you've installed Ruby, once again you should be able to go to the command line. If you're in Windows, it's CMD. If you're in Linux, it's terminal. And if you're in Mac, it's terminal as well too. I'm actually using iTerm. You can download it; it's totally free. But when you're in your command line environment, just type in ruby-v and it'll give you your version. Now, if you did download from railsinstaller.org, your Ruby version should say something like 1.9.3. But if you downloaded from RVM, you probably will be at 2.0. Either 1.9.3 or 2.0 are fine. So once you have Ruby installed, then you can. Now we're going to be using the Amazon services initially. So Amazon, to sign up, first of all, to sign up for these services is free, but to actually use them, it does cost money. Now, it's not a lot of money. It's basically the storage cost for S3 is a dime per gigabyte, roughly, and a penny per gig. So it's a dime per gigabyte on S3, and it's a penny per gigabyte on Glacier. Now, the difference between S3 and Glacier is basically Glacier is it's a little slower to get your data back. It can take hours. That's why they call it Glacier, because it's got like cold storage. It takes a while for you to get your data back. But anyway, so signing up for Amazon Web Services is free, but to use the actual services does cost money, depending on, of course, what you use. Now what you want to do is you want to go to aws.amazon.com. You want to click sign up right here and go through the sign up process and sign up. Once you have signed up, you can log in and you can click on my account/console and go to AWS Management Console, and it will log you into your console. Once you're in your console, it actually looks something like this. This is the AWS console. There's actually a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 sections here. There's computing and networking, which is how you can spin up machines, storage, Glacier S3. There's some other ones. They have databases. deployment stuff, app services like sending email, push notifications, queuing services. Amazon Web Services is pretty cool. So you should be able to, after you've signed up, you should be able to log in into this. The other thing you're going to need is keys. Um, Now, how you get to your keys is you have to, once you've logged in, you can click on your name and then you can go down to security credentials. Okay. And once you're on your security credentials page, you click access keys and it should show you some keys right here. Now, this page is still in the works, meaning they're still working on it. So you can click right here, use the legacy security credentials page, and you can log in and scroll down, and then here's here's a key right here, and then if you click this, it'll actually show you your secret key. Now you should not show these keys to the world. Well, this one I guess is okay, but this one, the secret access key, you should not show to anyone. So just write these down or copy them somewhere because we're going to actually put them in our command line. In the command line, there's a bash profile. We're going to put those in there in just a minute. So be sure and get an access key and then your secret access key here and write them down or put them somewhere. We're going to use them in just a minute. Okay, once you have your keys, if you go back to your terminal at your root directory, and how you know your root directory is if you just type in CD by itself, and that'll take you back to your home, the home directory I meant. You can do ls-al, and it'll show you you should have a bash profile. Anything that begins with a dot is a hidden file or a hidden directory. So this is a bash prompt right here, and so it reads the bash profile upon initialization. So if you don't have this, you should create this. If you don't have it, you can say touch.bash profile, and it will create that file for you, and then you can edit it in your editor of choice. You can use Vim, V-I-M, if you're on Linux or really any machine. If you're on Windows, Notepad++ or Notepad 2. If you're on Mac, TextMate, or I use Sublime. So I opened up bash profile, this bash profile in Sublime, and it has some interesting things in here. The most interesting are these two things right here. I said export, and these keys I just made up. This stands for my Amazon Web Service key, and this is my secret. This is the secret to the key. So this was the thing, and this was a key listed on the website, and then this is the secret one. So grab your key and your secret and then put them in your bash profile just like this. Save it, and then exit out of your command prompt. Exit completely out, and then come back into it like this. Go back to your command prompt and then type in echo $AWS key. And there's your key. You can also type in $AWS SEC, and you should see your secret key. What this does is this: if you were to upload your code to GitHub, for example, you don't want your secret keys being, or your keys just in general, being uploaded to GitHub. So what we do is we put them in our bash profile, and then we can use these environment settings in Ruby to pull this data out. One other thing I want to talk about really quick is pry. Now, once you have Ruby installed, you need a couple of gems. One we're going to use for debugging called pry, so you can just do gem install pry like this, and this will install a debugging gem, which is really good and useful. And then the other one is the other one's right here. This is aws.amazon.com/SDK for Ruby, and this is where all the information about how to access Amazon through Ruby you can get. So right over here where it says install the gem, you can just do gem install. I'm just going to copy this, and you can paste it in right here, and this will install that gem locally. So gems are just additional pieces of information that additional libraries or code that you can use in your programs that'll do whatever it is that you want, like accessing the web, parsing data, transmitting things, downloading things, manipulating images, whatever. Gems do lots of different things. So we have two gems here. Pry, once again, is for debugging, and then the AWS SDK is a gem for accessing Amazon. Okay, I think we're actually ready to start writing some code now. So if you go into your Documents directory, if you're on a Mac, or there's actually Documents on Windows too, but just some directory. I have a Chyld Studios directory here and a directory here called Titan. So inside my Titan, you can go ahead and create this directory called Titan. And there's one file in it. Now, this is actually a Git repo, but don't worry about that. But just go ahead and create this file called titan.rb. How you can do that is you can type in touch, titan.rb, and it'll actually create a blank file for you. After you've created that blank file, you can just edit it by using Sublime or whatever text editor you have. I have Sublime, so I'm going to edit it using Sublime. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, this file actually was already written. So up here at the top I have some comments. These are the two gems that we installed just a minute ago. This is used for debugging. This is used to access Amazon. Like I said, we'll be doing adding Dropbox behavior and encryption and other things later, so we'll be adding more gems to this. Another thing I want to point out is this is version 1 of this file, this program. This program will actually change and modify and grow and be more complex as time goes on. So this is actually just a first pass through. So for those of you looking at this and thinking, well, it's whatever, once again, just realize that it's just a version 1 and this file will change a lot. This line right here, AWS config, line 8. What this does is it actually pulls out, it pulls out your key and your secret from the bash profile, which actually sets up your environment as an environment variable. So it pulls it out of your environment, so that when you were to upload this file, let's say to GitHub, that someone wouldn't be able to steal your secret key and then use your Amazon resources and cost you money. So you don't want that to happen. So that's why we put those keys in there. So you could have obviously just put those keys directly in here, but that would not be wise. So once you configure AWS, right down here we're going to create a new S3 object. We're going to say AWS ::S3.new. So this will new up a new S3 object. Now I'm using the $ here. $ means it's a global variable. Now you shouldn't in reality use global variables, and we're going to end up stripping that global variable out, but just this is a simple program, so for right now it doesn't matter. We'll change it later. Okay, so what's going to happen here is down here at the bottom, basically on line 53, this is where it runs. It says while the show menu does not equal quit, then end. So this actually runs in a loop. So when the menu runs, it runs over and over and over and over again in a loop until you press Q, and then it stops. So show menu is where really it all starts from. So it starts right at the top, says print. You can do L for list your buckets, C to create a bucket, U to upload a file, D to download a file, or Q to quit. So now is a good time to talk about buckets and what they are and how they're used. So buckets. If you go to your Amazon console, down here under storage and content delivery, it's a console.aws.amazon.com/console/home. If you go down to storage and content delivery, and you can go to, we're going to do S3 is what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about Glacier and Dropbox and other things later on in the future. So if you go to S3, It tells you about a little bit about S3, and it allows you to create a bucket. Now, what is a bucket? A bucket is basically like a hard drive or a folder. It's just a place for you to put your files in. They call them buckets, but like I said, they're just like a hard drive or a folder. So, and inside buckets, you can save your files. So we're going to click Create Bucket. Now these bucket names, let's say you, well, first of all, well, let's do this. Let's say we want to call it temp. Click Create. Gives you an error. Turns out these bucket names are shared among everybody in the world. So you have to make sure your bucket name is unique. It's sort of like an email address. It has to be unique. So I'm going to say temp Chyld Studios. Now the region is where this bucket is located at. U.S. standard is in Virginia. There's a data center in Oregon, Northern California, Ireland, Singapore, Tokyo City, and Sao Paulo. So wherever you're at or wherever your customer's at, you want to store your data closest to you or your customer. So this is closest to me, so choose that, create, and there we go. I have a bucket now created. And if I click on it, it says my bucket is empty. This is like a hard drive or a folder, and it says there's nothing in here. And I can store as many files as I want inside this thing. Okay, now that I have that, I can go back to my code. And the menu that I have is list, create, upload, or download. Okay, so I'm going to get my response. Response is going to be one of these 5 letters. It's an L, list, C, create, U, upload, D, download, or Q is quit. So the simplest one is just to list. So if I look right here, it says when I type an L in, I grab my S3, which is the global variable up here at the top. It's just an object that it's just an S3 object that allows you to do S3 commands, and so I can grab all my buckets on S3 and I can loop through each one of them. Each bucket one at a time goes into this bucket temporary variable here, and then I just print out that bucket's name. So if I have 5 buckets, this block right here, this is a block, and this is a local variable to the block. This will get printed out, or this will run 10 times. So let's try that. Let's try the L. So you can type in Ruby, Titan, and here's my menu, and I can type in L. Okay, something strange happened, but let's. So I quit out of this. Let's try this again. List, and you can see here that it actually has the name of the bucket that I had just created just a minute ago. Temp-Chyld Studio. So there's my bucket. I had one created, and it listed one out. And that is exactly what this code is saying here. It's saying grab the S3 object, go through all my buckets, go through each bucket in this list of buckets, and then print it out. So pretty simple. The next thing we want to do is we want to create a bucket. So how this works is if you type in a C, it's going to come down here. It's going to print out the bucket name. You type in whatever name it is you want, and what's going to happen here is it's going to print out this screen. Error with bucket name. Please try again if you cannot create a bucket with this name. Now create bucket is actually a function that I created. That's right up here. So you type in your bucket, you get its name, and you call this function. What happens here is when you try to create a bucket, if there's an error, Amazon actually will raise an exception. And when you raise an exception, what that basically does is it causes your program to crash. So you have to catch that exception, or else your program will just crash on your end user, and you don't want that to happen. So we put anything that might blow up, so to speak, in a begin rescue block. So if this does work, then this will just return a bucket. If it does not work, then this rescue section here will get called, and it will return nothing. So this function here will either return one of two things. It'll either return a bucket or nothing. And that's exactly what's happening down here. If it returns something, then this error doesn't occur. But if it returns nothing, then the error does occur. So let's try this out. going to call this, we're going to say create bucket, and we're going to call it temp. Now we know that temp should not work, and it actually errored out. But see, if you didn't catch the exception, then the program would have just blown up and you would have had to rerun the program. But because we caught the exception, we can continue to run the program with no problem. So let's go ahead and create another bucket. We'll say temp-child studios 2. This should work, and it does. Quit out. Now let's go back here to my buckets, and I'm going to hit refresh right here in the corner, this little thing, and as you can see now I actually have 2 buckets. If we were to go back here, we run this again and type in L list buckets, you can see that indeed this is the old bucket that I created on Amazon itself, and this is the one I created locally. So that's good. So I can now list buckets and create buckets. Now I need to be able to upload a file and download a file. So you can't obviously download a file until you upload it first. So let's create a file to upload. So I'm going to quit out of this, and I'm going to say touch temp.text. Once I do that, you can edit this file. I'm actually in Sublime right now, so this file actually just showed up in my list right here, so I can just type in my name. This is a test. Okay, so there's my file. It's called temp.text. Now what's going to happen here is I'm going to ask, when you upload a file, you have to know basically what hard drive or what folder it is that you want to upload it to. That's your bucket. So what bucket do you want to put this file into? So it says this is the bucket that I want to put the file into. Once you get its name, then you have to say S3. They use the S3 object. Go to all its buckets and then pick the particular one. So this is a hash. So we're going to plug in the key, and then the value pops out, which is the actual bucket. So this is the bucket where I want to store the file. I grab the name of the file here, and then I say bucket.objects file. So what this does is it actually creates a file on Amazon with the name of the file that I just typed in, and it writes information to it. So what happens here is it actually opens the file locally on my disk, opens the file locally, starts reading it in, and then it starts writing it to this file on Amazon. So let's try that. Let's try and upload this file temp.text. So we're going to say upload, and the bucket name we're going to say temp-child studios 2. We'll put it in that bucket, and we're going to put in temp.text. We didn't get an error message, that's always good, and it didn't crash, so that's also good. So I'm going to click this and let's see what happens. And there is this file, and if I double click on it, there's the contents. So this shows that this file was actually uploaded to Amazon, which is pretty cool. Now let's quit out. I want to delete this file, so I'm going to say rm temp.text. So you can see that that file is now gone. The only file I have is titan.rb. The only file I have is titan.rb, so I'm going to rerun this file, rerun this, but I'm going to download it this time. So the download code, this is a little bit trickier. Same thing for upload. You have to know what bucket it is you want to download from. You have to grab that bucket, and then you have to get the file inside the bucket. And this actually gets the file, so it goes to the bucket, grabs all the objects, which are basically all the files in there, and it grabs this specific file. Once it does that, this on line 43, this actually opens this file on your hard drive. It opens the file on your hard drive for reading. That's what WB stands for. W stands for writing and B stands for binary. So it opens this file for writing, and so now the file is opened on my local hard drive, but there's nothing in it. So it has to read the file right here. It has to read the file that it got from Amazon, one chunk at a time. Now the chunk is sort of arbitrary, but it's basically streaming the file down. And as it's reading the file from Amazon, it's writing it locally to this file that's open. So I'm opening a file on the cloud, it's streaming down, and then it's writing it locally. And once it finishes, it closes the file out and it ends. So let's try and see if this thing runs. So we're going to say D download, bucket name Chyld, temp-Chyld 2, and it's called temp.txt, quit. And hopefully we should see another file here, and there's temp.txt. It has some data in it. Let's look inside of it. We'll say cat temp.txt. Cat actually will show you the contents of a file. So yeah, here's the file that we downloaded. So we were able to create a bucket, list the buckets, upload files to a bucket, and then download a bucket. Yeah, that's pretty good. This file, or yeah, this code has been uploaded to GitHub. So if you go to github.com/chyld/Titan, you can actually come up here and look at the titan.rb file if you wish. Now we're going to be adding in a lot more features. This is just basically a simple, silly example. We're going to be adding in a lot more features in the future. Another thing I want to talk about really fast is the API documentation. So we talked about this aws.amazon.com/SDK for Ruby. If you want to know how I figured out all this stuff, well, it's through the API documentation. If you go to this website down here, which is API documentation, you can click on it. This tells you all about AWS. This is just an overview on AWS and all the different things that this SDK can do. Now, but we were specifically dealing with S3, so if you scroll down here and go to S3, this tells you how to set up your configuration, how to create buckets, how to enumerate or loop through buckets, how to loop through all the objects on a bucket, which are basically files, how to upload and download a file. Yeah, tons and tons and tons of information on how to use S3 and then Glacier and other items in Amazon's SDK. So that's about it for right now. Like I said, check out this. My Twitter is @ChyldMedford. That's just one word, @CHYLDMEDFORD. You can send me a direct message or tweet or whatever. My email is chyld.medford@gmail.com, so you can send me an email if you wish. But we're going to be adding on a lot more information, or a lot more functionality to this, and make it cooler in the future. All right, thanks, bye.